Hello, hello, and welcome to Hissing Thoughts Talks.
What's up, homies? Welcome to an interview with Hissing Thoughts. My name's KrazyCorn, content creator for Jokester and SxC. We got Vice Clan Master Hissing Thoughts. He's been with SxC for 2 years. He's a father of 3 plus a dog. Welcome, Hissing. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
We reached out to the community and we asked, what kind of questions would you ask Hissing Thoughts? Starting with, where did your name come from?
Now that is a long story actually, but I think it's interesting. So obviously I'm not your usual sort of gamer. I'm of an older generation. I'm Generation X, so that just means I've been around X amount of years, longer than everybody else. And back in the day, before any of this content creation, before any of this social media and so on, the first way people started to share on the internet was through a thing called blogging, which was sort of like taking your journal or your diary and putting it out there for everybody to see. And then you had comments, and that's how you started interacting with people. Initially, I wasn't creating my own stuff. I was one of those people that would go into people's comments and interact with the people that were creating stuff and putting it out there. And I think they got annoying enough that they said I should do my own thing. So I started it up, and it wasn't Hissing Thoughts. It was D-Man Bites Dog. D-Man is, I guess, a nickname that people give me. It's, the first initials linked to my real name. And that's because I was a journalist in a past life. The man bites dog concept is like, that's an interesting story. Dog bites man, that's pretty commonplace. That's not really news, but a man biting a dog, so that was the title. And so I would start to share things that was going on, or just thoughts that you had. And then as the technology allowed, you could start doing things like adding in links, like to short videos or music. And you can see by the guitar behind me, when I was young, when I was a teenager, I got into writing poetry. And at a certain point, that poetry developed a melody, which is essentially song lyrics. You can hear a music behind it. But I was a poet, not a songwriter. I couldn't play anything. So when I met the woman that would become my wife, she had a guitar and I picked it up for the first time. And you learn 3 chords. This is the punk rock way of doing things. Learn 3 chords, go away and write a song. And so I started to do that. And then, so around that time that I was blogging, I was really prolific with my songwriting. I would pump out a song a day sort of thing. And, a lot of it was lyric based, and then just throw in some melody, some harmony, bad guitar sort of thing. But this was a long time ago. I didn't know it was really hard to record digitally songs, because the previous way was analog with tape and all of that. I didn't know how to do that either. But, the technology was starting to be there. You could record your music. So didn't have a mic, didn't have anything like that. And I started recording this stuff and being brave enough to share it. Like, I think for those that are creative, a real key thing to the creative process is sharing what you've done. Not expecting that people will like it or even hate it, but just putting it out there so it can be out there in the discoverable world. So I started doing that, and it was pretty bad recordings, although it was the best I could do at the time. 2 things about it I really noticed that stood out really badly was there was this hiss to the back of the music. That's a sign of really bad audio capture. Like if you got a terrible mic or whatever, so you can hear it. Sometimes you might be watching a YouTube content creator that they haven't quite got things together yet, and you can hear that, or maybe aircon's the other thing that you hear in the background. But there's this hiss going on. And the other thing is, I have done some lessons, but I'm not a great singer. And back then I knew nothing. And again, microphone technique, there's this thing called sibilance. So if there's that goes on with certain letters and so on. If it your mic will either pop or it'll hiss. And so initially I was describing my music to people as acoustic cringe, because it was just like, this is cringe-worthy stuff. Then I turned it into it's Hissing Thoughts. That's how I used to promote the sound of my music, because that's what I thought it was. I liked my music, I liked my quirky lyrics and stuff, but it was the Hissing Thoughts. And I thought, hey, it's a pretty cool little phrase actually, because it's describing this bad recorded music. But when you think about it, I thought that hisses is something that just plays around in your mind after you've heard it. You go away and you're still thinking about it. It's a thought that hisses away at you after you've left the conversation or whatever. And it's like, hey, that's kind of poetic. It's kind of dark in a way, and it's profound and philosophical. And then I thought, I could actually use that as a branding type thing. And so I had this idea, and I think this is maybe a younger person's thing, but you start to think of yourself as a brand or a company, and you go, I'll develop this company, and all the creative stuff I do comes under it. So the idea with Hissing Thoughts was, that was the parent company for everything creative I did.
Why did you want to be a content creator?
I've got a YouTube channel called Hissing Thoughts, and Hissing Thoughts Gaming is actually a branch off of that. So you have your main channel and then you can separate it out so you're focused on certain things. I didn't necessarily want to be a content creator per se. Like I do have this thing to share things and search for community. That's a good way of doing it. You share what you like and then someone else sees that and they like it as well. And then you start to have a conversation, and that's how you build a community basically of like-minded people. When I started YouTube, it was not about that at all. I actually had a problem I needed to solve. There's a thing called a dictaphone, which was a small cassette recorder, and so that's how we would have this conversation. We would never have been able to do it like this back in the day, but we would get together in a room, and to help, especially if you maybe didn't write up a feature for 6 weeks afterwards, it's hard, you've got notes, but it's a slow process. You would record. I got this dictaphone when I was first starting out, and at that time I was living with my grandmother. And my mother said, hey, like if you can get a chance, just record her on the sly, talking about her life sort of thing. And so I did that. And she died like 3 months after I did this. I wasn't living with her for very long when I moved to my country's biggest city to look for work. Because the dictaphone was new, I was trying certain functions on it. One was there was a setting that it would only start recording when someone talked, so it wouldn't pick up any of that silence, but it wasn't quite perfect, so there was this delay. It just kept chopping things off, and when you're talking to someone, sometimes they're just giving a couple of words response. It didn't pick that up. But anyway, I had this really terrible little cassette that captured my my nana's voice, and the rest of the family hadn't heard it. She'd been dead many years by the stage. I thought I should do something about this, start documenting some of this family stuff that I've got. The problem was, okay, well, how do I make this digital for starters? And how do I then share it digitally with my whānau, my family around, well, largely Auckland and the North Island here? And so, I was looking for a technology solution. And of course there was YouTube. I was already consuming YouTube. There is a guy called Casey Neistat who's a really well-known, he was New York at the time, but he's an American vlogger and hugely inspirational for me. Like, just his storytelling. I'm a fan of storytelling. He was telling a story and I really respected that. And I was like, hey, how about I just do this video that's a story about this old tape that is a record of my grandmother. And so that's how it started. I started working on this project and then it turned about talking about my grandmother's life, and so I had to get all these photos and birth certificates and just get the whole thing together. So it turned into the 6-month project, but it got me started thinking about, oh yeah, my audience is my family. I was never share this with the white, with people that don't know her or whatever. But while I was working on that, I started to get into just videoing, just capturing stuff. And so I set up the YouTube for the sole purpose of sharing this tape, the story of the tape with my family. But while I was there, it's like, oh, I'll just start telling stories. Not like Casey Neistat, but in my own way. I think I mentioned I was doing poetry as well, and I had this stupid idea of, why don't I record me speaking about my poem and then try to have a video representation over it? These are just short things, and it's just taking that creative element a bit further. And so that's basically how I got started. And then actually this t-shirt here, this is it says Beamy, but it's Beam. Casey Neistat again started a social media app called Beam, and I guess the idea was he was using some technology elements with a phone. It was essentially TikTok before TikTok existed, but much crappier because it was a while ago. You could just share little bits about your day, but of course the creative elements, the creative people would try and turn that into vlogging. We would do these little stitch videos and turn it into a story. But the thing that Beam had was, I put that story up, it's a minute long or whatever. People can go in. So on TikTok, you chat in response, right? On Beam, the way you responded is you recorded yourself talking to your camera, which then went out and the other person watched it. So instead of just type chats, it was like this. I would go, oh my God, man, that video I totally relate to that. My dog does stupid things like that all the time. And then that person, the originator, would respond, and then there's a chain of little video conversation. And the thing is, anybody else could see that. So they could see the conversation that was going on. Then they could join in, and it was just like, that's how you build a community. It's just, you get this chat going on. And because it wasn't anonymous, it was less likely to be toxic because I can see you. I might not know your real name, but I can see you. I know what you look like. And when you remove that in the anonymous side of it, anonymity, you're less likely to be a dick, basically. That's what it was, right? You know, you're less likely when someone can eyeball you versus the way that these keyboard warriors act. And so the side app, essentially, it got shut down after a couple of years, and we'd built up these really great friendships. And the discussion is, where do we go now? So largely we wound up back on YouTube, and we were at that stage, there was enough talent amongst us. We started doing collaborations. So I would write a song, I would get you to sing a bit on it, or if you beatboxed or whatever, we'd just work it out. And it was some pretty challenging stuff, and it was not widely watched at all for the effort I put into it, but we started doing that sort of stuff. I then started daily vlogging every day for a number of years, essentially just off of that. It's like, I'm a YouTuber now. Wasn't getting paid for it. It was just, that was my hobby. It taught me to be brave enough to interact like this, just to speak and release sort of thing, engage with other people, try and do all the logistic elements of setting things up. Hey, I need this from you. You want to be part of this? We're doing a skateboarding video and so on. And then waiting for people that say that they'll do things to actually deliver, like all that management stuff. But as well, daily vlogging, I mean, just videos, audio, all these sorts of things. You know, you start to get a bit more professional as you go. I think at that stage was a senior design specialist at my company. So there was a lot of side work I could do as well. I was doing wedding photography, I was doing videography, I was doing all these lots of other things. But the YouTube was the launch for all of that. You know, it's just a great way to teach yourself technical skills. And that's actually how the gaming side of things got started up as well. So I used to use gaming, I used to play computer games like Far Cry. I'd get home from work, I always had these side jobs on, and then I'd sit down and edit my YouTube video, and then to reward myself, I'd play a couple of hours of computer games basically. And I was watching at the time other people that were starting to capture the game audio and share it. Even just like what we're doing now, just recording the screen. That stuff blew my mind back then. It was like, how do you do this? And it was a lot harder for sure. I thought, you know what? I'm already doing this gaming thing. How about I just, I was enjoying watching the likes of PewDiePie and Shroud and gamers like that. Even though I wasn't playing the games they were playing. And it's like, okay, well, how about I start doing a gaming channel. It'll teach me certain skills, like how do you capture that stuff? How do you stream? After a while, mobile gaming came in, and that was even harder to capture stuff. But that's why I did it. So two reasons. One is to learn some things, and two, to find community.
A lot of your fans are content creators themselves. You know, if you were to go back and to tell yourself or give yourself a suggestion to be successful as a content creator, what would you tell yourself?
Oh man, now there's a question. You'll hear Jokester. He'll keep using this phrase about you got to be consistent. And in fact, even one of his finger sleeves is consistency. You know, that's in mind. I would go a little step further to add the word sustainable into that. Sustainable consistency. So consistent just means essentially anything in life, you are what you do. You can't say, hey, I'm a poet, if the last poem you wrote was back in 2013. You are not a poet. You were a poet. You can do poetry, but you are not a poet. What are you? What do you spend most of your time on outside of work? Well, you can say what you do for work. That's what you do, but that's essentially what you are. So do not call yourself a gaming content creator if you do one video and nothing else sort of thing. So and don't overpromise. I saw this with so many friends from small to larger, where they come out and they say, hey, I'm going to be a daily vlogger and I'm going to do it every day from here on, and they never did another video. And then they come back a year later and go, oh man, I screwed up there. I'm going to come back and I'm going to do it every day, and they do one video. And it's like, for starters, don't promise. Just do the thing. So if you want to think about starting a gaming channel, just start. Like, work out how to do that video, and it's going to be the crappiest thing ever because it's your first thing, but you'll love it. You'll love it enough to be doing it. You'll get it out there, share it, maybe get some friends to comment on it or whatever, but you'll learn just through that experience. You might learn that you don't want to do it. Like, it's hard. I've tried teaching at least one of my children's how to edit, because I had this idea of maybe they could edit all my videos and that would give me more time and I'd flick them some pocket money sort of thing. But they found out it's, at the start, it's actually kind of hard to get good with it. But sustainable consistency. So you have to be honest with yourself about how much you can commit to something. If you've got a full-time job and a family or whatever, a school and exams, and then just treat it as a fun pastime and do that. But if it's your job, you need to turn up 5 days a week or whatever it is that your minimum is. Know what your minimum is for doing things and earn that money basically. Yeah, you are what you do. You just be realistic about what you are and what you can do. Another example would be, hey, you want to lose some weight, and you go all in and you lose some weight. And then 6 months later, you're back to the starting weight because it wasn't sustainable consistency. You went in too hard, and then it was too hard, and you gave up, and now you're just sitting there on the couch with a beer and and a meat pie.
How do you balance work and family and streaming and gaming and editing? How does that work for you?
Partly, I have some consistency in my family life, in that we get together at bits and then we go off to our corners and do our own thing. If I had to sit there all night, as a family unit, that would be, you'd have no time for anything. But I think by this stage that you are what you do, gaming is the thing. It's not just playing the games or the content creation. There's a lot of community involvement, obviously, with SxC, helping Jokester through some stuff as well, helping other content creators as well as they need it. Sometimes people you've connected with need a bit of extra emotional support or whatever. All that thing comes into that. It's a community, and so it's not one thing there. It actually is almost as much as your daytime job you can spend on it. I've had to learn to be a bit more protective, way more protective about my time, not just saying yes to everything, because that's how I was for a large part of my life. It's very easy if you're an introvert to stay in your safety bubble, but I think growth, the ability to thrive and flourish comes from just getting each day a little bit more out of your comfort zone and doing things that scare you a little bit. For example, streaming, or the number of times I've heard people tell me that they're too scared to turn on their in-game mic in a game, even when it's not on stream or being recorded, that they're too scared to talk to other people. And some of those people that have told me that, it surprised me because I had no idea, because we talk all the time. It's like that's in their wheelhouse, that's in their history. But they learnt to just push those boundaries a bit more. I think I would say at one stage just yes to everything that was offered to me, and what happens is you wind up doing heaps of side things. And yeah, you can make a little bit of money out of that and so on, and you can learn a little bit of things. But what you lose is your time. And now I actually value my own time. So I'm very careful about taking on extra things because I've got more than enough on my plate. As you say, with family life, just even walking the dog. The dog's there at the moment waiting to be walked because her schedule's a bit screwed up at the moment too. But it's all these little things that go, okay, the gaming is there, but it is a second priority, like the family stuff comes first. So I guess part of it is I've got a wife that she's not a gamer at all. Like maybe she plays solitaire on her phone or whatever, but the rest of the family is into gaming. Played games with my kids as well, normally when they're bored and they don't have their friends available. They come and ask Dad. 4 of us we share a common interest there and a common knowledge of the culture and so on. And my wife at least tolerates what I'm doing. Like if it was a problem with her, would I be still doing this? Hell no. Like the gaming would just be gone like that. If that's going to cause a problem in my marriage and my home life, then you got to have your priorities in order. And so that's kind of what it is, priorities. And partly, how do I find time to edit things? That is a struggle sometimes because I can play some games and get some great footage, but then I have to find time to deal with that. So the editing itself is fine. You know my style. I don't put a lot of effort into it because weighing up the benefits of how many views are you getting sort of thing. I learned that the hard way. Don't spend 6 weeks on something when only 30 people are going to watch it at the end. Like that only can happen to you so many times when you go, yeah, I'll just do the bare minimum, because when I do the bare minimum, that gets the views, One of my biggest COD Mobile videos was the Hawk's Nest recoil video.
Recoil.
And I just got this idea, Hawk's Nest was the first big streamer that interacted with me. Like, shout out to him, and he was a stats guy, which I like my stats. It's not so much the stats, I love my gunsmith loadouts. If you watch me and my friend Dusk, we're playing Ghost Recon at the moment. We just get engrossed in looking at our loadouts sometimes. The stream is just like 10 minutes of us just staring at the screen, looking at it, because I just love that it's the game within the game trying to work out what's the best loadout for me. And so Hawk's Nest was that guy, and he did this video where he just said recoil, I think it was 100 times, and it became this sort of in joke in the comments where people are having an argument about how many times he said it. And then iFerg said iFerg's comment, someone should, do a video on this. And I was onto it just so fast. I saw it, I went in, and for science, I clipped everything and I counted the number of times, and I turned it into this like 50-second video. And Hawk's Nest loved it. He shared it, and that's probably 50,000 views just like that. And that gave me my first bump in subscribers. That was easy. It wasn't a hard video to do at all, because I've got the video editing skills. I've got an idea of if I'm actually trying to convey a story in the shortest bit, that stuff's not hard for me. But it is just finding the motivation sometimes. Basically just priorities. You've got to go, who am I and what's important to me, and make sure you're doing that thing and not getting sidetracked by other things too much.
Yeah, speaking of big content creators, let's talk about Jokester. Like, how did you meet him, and what's your relationship like with him?
Love Jokester. I mentioned Hawk's Nest, and I came to COD Mobile from PUBG. PUBG was the first mobile game that I got into, and I didn't even want to play mobile games, to be honest, to start with. It was just because a friend wanted to hang out in game and he didn't have a computer. So he said, let's try this PUBG thing, we can talk in it. And we actually used it as a vlogging experience. And when I came over to COD Mobile, there was a guy from the clan I was in there, his name is Fox, and he's a long-term member of Supreme Extreme Carnage, SxC. I had the same, so everybody discovers iFerg as their first content creator. You start playing COD Mobile, you do a search for how do you play this game, and he's going to be the guy you see essentially. I personally like interacting with the creators, and if they interact back, that's a big selling point for me. If they ignore you, then nah, you're not for me. So I need someone that isn't too big that they can. So iFerg actually did. We're talking about live stream comments. He did engage just a little bit here and there. It was enough. And then you go, okay, well, who else is there? And so you discover the stats guy, the Hawk's Nest, and I was certainly around to see the development of the stats community with the Path and the Signews and so on, and some of the people that weren't on YouTube but were on Reddit and so on. And Jokester was amongst that as well. And this was just before I was aware of him, probably that first season, because he was live streaming, and I can go back and see that I watched those live streams, because YouTube gives you that red thing that says, yeah, you watched that. And however, and his content as well, I was engaging there, but I wasn't getting the engagement that I was with Jokester as I was with actually Hawk's Nest at the time, when he was really into COD Mobile. I tried to replicate that recoil thing with Jokester, where Jokester did a video where he Jokester pops off a lot, I called it, and it just didn't take off like the I think because Hawk's Nest really liked the video and shared it on his platform, and linked the thing, whereas I don't even know if Jokester saw that one. So that was my attempt to try and replicate that viral moment, and it just didn't happen. And I think I tried it with something else, and it just didn't happen. So it's not good enough just to go, hey, I'll do something about a big streamer and find something quirky. And then just after that, Jokester went for #1, and so he was really popping off. He was doing his grenade angles, like the S&D maps, like they were hugely influential at the time. I know he doesn't do it anymore because it's too much time, but they were really high value things, and he was the top player for a period of time. So obviously at that stage I'm really aware of him, but still not in any way friends or engaging at all. What the turning point was is my friend Fox that I mentioned. We all came over from PUBG to try out this new game, but PUBG was still, that's where our heart was and so on. That's where we got together as a clan and just hung out and did stupid crap basically. But Fox really got into COD Mobile, and he was at a point where he needed something a bit more serious, and we had our clan on COD Mobile as well, but it wasn't serious. We weren't winning any crates or anything like that. So he left to join a top clan basically, and with top players. And so he was going down a path of, he could probably have gone pro if he wanted to. But then one day I remember catching up with him after work, and he's like, oh my God, I just got destroyed by this guy. Have you heard of Jokester? And essentially he went up against Jokester in a game, and Fox is a good player, but Jokester just completely pooped on him basically. And you can be demoralized about that. That's one approach, and go, oh man, I'm shit. No, Fox was just like that instantly won his respect, and so he became one of Jokester's big fanboys essentially at that point. And so all I heard about was Jokester for some time afterwards. And then because Jokester was had a streaming, he was back on his streaming drive on YouTube and Trovo, and Fox was, I think he was the moderator for Trovo, and so to support Fox, not Jokester, to support Fox, I went and hung out, and it's like, wow, actually, this guy Jokester's got some really cool moderators. Like, he's got a really cool community. The chat was definitely on Trovo because it was smaller, but it was way less toxic than some of the other big YouTubers. Like, if I see toxicity and it's not being in people, the content creators tolerating that behavior, I think dimly of the content creator, and it was just such a different experience. And so I just started hanging out. Each time Jokester streamed, I'd hang out there to be with my buddy Fox, but I was also getting to know some of Fox's moderator friends as well, and they were a cool bunch of people, and some of them had channels, and it just sort of took off like that. And then Jokester would start responding to some of the questions I was having, and we were then having this chat. He would be talking, answering the questions, and I would just be writing, and it's like, man, we're actually got a bit of an interview going here now. And then one day he just made me a moderator on both Trovo and Twitch on the same day, because I if I'm here at home, I can obviously have multiple tabs open and I can multitask, and so I was on both platforms at once, and boom, there it is. I'm now a moderator for Jokester. And then what sort of advanced our relationship a bit more, we'd hang out after streams as well, me, him, and Fox. And then we started hanging out on stream as well. So there was a period of time where actually Jokester played each day with moderators, and it was different content for him because we were having a laugh. We were having a conversation and so on, and you don't always see that. You don't see it when he's playing solo. Absolutely not. He's focused and he's doing this thing. And we did that for, I think it was some months actually. It was good fun. And then he's got content requirements, and it's a bit harder to get that when you've got hissing thoughts as thoughts being articulated over bits and so on. Yeah, that was a really, really cool time. And then so Motek is Jokester's CEO. He is his right-hand man, basically. He's probably the most important support unit. This is something I'll be actually interviewing Motek about a bit later, but so I won't do too many spoilers. But Motek disappeared one day, and nobody knew where he was. I'm laughing because it wasn't a serious thing, but it was this thing where now his Jokester support unit's gone. So I didn't step in necessarily to help out there. I was already back to this idea of community. I liked the mod community. There were certain elements that were happening here and there where this concept of you get the behavior you tolerate, and there were certain things going on that say, hey, I think we've got higher behavioral standards. So me as the dad was trying to help people out there. And then I guess Jokester trusted me, I guess. We had already done an interview series, which I think was something unique for him, similar to what you're doing here. He'd never been interviewed about his gaming life before. So, and I'd helped him out with, I've got a marketing background as well, with just some things around the SxC sleeves, which disclaimer, I am a partner of, so if you use code HIS you get 10% off, and I get a buck out of that at checkout. And yeah, so Motek was actually turned out to be gone for a long period of time, which was a dark period for us, because you don't realize just how much you rely on someone until they're not there. And so yeah, I stepped in to help out there for the period that he was gone as a caretaker position, and was very incredibly grateful, as was Jokester when he came back and could take that up again. But so that's that largely.
Let's go right into the lightning round, where I ask you a question and you answer quickly, whatever comes out the top of your head.
Yep.
What is the first console you've ever owned?
The original PlayStation, and I got it because I watched my brother-in-law play Resident Evil, and it was like, I love that game, and that was the only way I could get it. Had to buy the console.
And what game have you spent the most amount of money on?
It's actually probably COD Mobile now, because of the Battle Pass, and this is what, we're 3 years pretty much coming up, I think. Yeah, I think it would be COD Mobile.
All right, and if video games didn't exist, what would you do?
I'd like to say I would go back to doing more music. There's this music thing. I have a band. We have I don't game on Wednesdays because we have band night. I used to do music all the time. Now that I mostly do gaming, I do less of that. If I didn't have that weekly thing, I probably wouldn't be doing music at all. And we have been trying to record our new album since 2017. We're sort of COVID obviously came along. We're getting back into it, but I'd like to think that time would just be replaced by something else I'm interested in, so it would probably be that.
What device do you play on?
Well, I'd like to say I'm playing on my new iPad Air 5, which shout out to my supporters helped buy. But unfortunately, I have technical issues at the moment trying to work out how to get that onto my laptop, the footage. So I'm still using my AirPad 2. Yeah, that's it. And I have a Dell G15 Ryzen for my PC experience.
What's your favorite gun in COD Mobile?
Often you got to ask that question in the now because the meta is always changing. I was known for a bit as lovingly as Holger Thoughts, because even after it stopped being meta, I'd use the LMG version in S&D to pretty good effect. But at the moment, we're in a period where we're actually quite spoilt for choice. I can point to transformational games. The PDW has come back into my loadout, and I'm hoping we're about to have an update drop that might be a bit more viable. I've used it in rank, and I can't destroy with it, but I can get some kills with it. So I think there's potential there. But the PDW was my first gun that I loved. I got that. I think I got a version through the store that they have, and I used that gun until my former clan master bullied me into using something else. So there's that. Currently, Peacekeeper is probably my main, but I just SPR and the marksman side of things, DLQ, the QQ9 is a transformational gun for me. When I use it, it makes me play a little bit differently. So there's that as well. I like the Deagle, the G50S, I think it is. I surprisingly can get as many kills with that because that's what I pair with my sniper rifle sometimes in a game. And when I play like COD Mobile PC games or whatever, or any PC game, I tend to prefer the pistols. They're way more satisfying to get pistol kills. If I was good with a Tomahawk, I'd say Tomahawk. Or actually, I got a couple of kills with a rocket launcher last night. That was fun as well. But to answer your question, yeah, I don't think I have a clear favorite because it's always changing. Yeah, I liked. Well, look, in Modern Warfare, I liked the what's it called? The E21. It's the sniper rifle that's good in Battle Royale and COD Mobile, but terrible in multiplayer. So, it's interesting.
What makes you happy in life?
My company, or my boss, we were piloting a weekly survey thing where they asked questions like that. And I struggled with that one, partly because asking me questions like at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday when I'm trying to focus for the day sort of thing, and expecting to answer it via an online survey when my boss sits right across from me. It was a bizarre concept, but that was a question that I struggled with. It's like, how deep do you want to go here? Like, that's a really philosophical thing. And then I went, it's like, what is happiness anyway? Like, am I ever really happy? Like, sometimes I feel like when people talk about taking pills, drugs for like depression or whatever, and some of them balance them out so they don't experience highs and lows, I kind of feel like that's my default in life. But I catch myself on stream sometimes, or I go back and watch and I'm like, I look pretty happy there. So it's not really the gaming. The gaming alone, if I did that to no audience, I'd still be having fun, right? Killing bots or whatever. But I think the ability to engage with other people around something that you love doing and they love watching you doing it, yeah, that absolutely makes me happy.
So you mentioned that you were in a band. Tell me about that band.
I've been writing music since technically I was a teenager, actually. I was doing poetry to start with, and then those words had a melody to them. So what that means is, like when you just start making up songs or whatever, the lines have a melody, but you can't hear that melody because it's in my head. I have to sing it to you. And how can you do a song if you can't do, music? So, I got a guitar, started to learn, and I just started writing this stuff. I think, the ideas were good, the lyrics were good, the guitar playing was terrible, and the singing was terrible. But, we all got to start somewhere. And then I made a friend at work. His name is Clayton, and for a period of time, we were best friends. We're still really good friends. It's just he lives a way away now, and when you've got distance separation, that's just a natural ebb and flow of friendships. But he had a pseudo band. A pseudo band is a fake band, basically. Him and his mate Hugh were writing music. Clayton wasn't a singer as such, but he was an actor, so he could go into a character and project. And Hugh had his own recording studio at home and played every instrument under the sun. Well, Clayton was having some relationship issues at this time, and he would tell me about them. I guess maybe I'm a good listener. People like to tell me their stories, and what I do is I turn that into content. I turn that into stories, essentially. I put myself in their shoes and I tell their story. And so I went home that night, wrote a song called Crazy Girl, Get Out of My Head, and I recorded it really quickly, and then I sent it to him the next day, and he was blown away. It's like, what the hell? And he just couldn't believe someone could do that. Like, just take the story that someone told over the lunch table and turn it in, it's a song. And so he got so excited, he called up his friend Hugh, and it's like, I want to do this. And so we got together one night, and that was the first time I had ever worked with another musician, but also someone that was, I guess you'd call a professional musician. We rewrote, the song was largely there lyrically. We added a bridge and removed a verse, and the chord structure was pretty much there, but done properly. And we recorded it, and Clayton sung. And Clayton, it was very, very well done. And it was, I guess, what you'd call a demo or a work tape. Like, it was like, we would probably have kept working on it. There was maybe a couple of lyrics that, we would have changed. But he was so excited by it that he immediately started sharing it with people. And one of those, it wound up getting played on a radio station in New Zealand, actually. And that radio station, it wasn't a big station, but it covered a coastal area. They liked it so much that they're like, hey, would you come down at New Year's and play it, do it live? And so that was terrifying for me. I'd never played live before. I didn't think I was capable of that, but I said yes. Now, unfortunately, Clayton and his friend Hugh had a bit of a falling out before that ever happened. We managed to try and record one more song, but it never got released. And so that was the end of, that band was called Las Vegas SxC Girls. Clayton came up with that name walking home drunk on a road in Auckland, which is a red light area, and there was a sign for a strip club, and it was called Las Vegas SxC Girls, and he drunkenly went, that's a great name for a band. So when he got the chance, that's what he had. So that band didn't last very long at all, never performed live, but we got this cool song out of it. And then after that, I've got this, I've had this experience of thinking I'm going to be a rock star, and I can work with a guy that can actually sing and also write songs, and I can work with a guy that can play instruments. So all I have to do is turn up and just give them stuff, and I don't have to worry too much about sucking. I don't have to sing, I don't have to turn down the guitar, and but I'd had this experience. It's like, I want that. What do I do now? And I realized if I wanted that, I had to do it myself. And so I started working on an album. And the first album that I largely solo released, kind of punky, really better recording quality than when Hissing Thoughts first started up, but it was called Love, Whores and Metaphors. And it was actually channeling this guy Clayton's relationship largely. It does tell a story there. And I redid Crazy Girl on a ukulele just so I could reclaim that song. And while I was doing that, I've got a friend, Chris, who we would catch up every month, and he's really into the blues, plays harmonica and plays slide guitar and all that. We would get together and jam, and at that stage, because I'm writing songs, we started jamming to my songs. And then I was like, oh crap, I can actually grab him and record him on it. So I went around to his house one day and I said, hey, jump in the car, we're going to go record some harmonica on the song I've just written. And it was 2 hours before his dinner time. His wife's like, what? I'm like, I'll have him back, don't worry. And brought him around here to this garage, to the studio, and that was the start of me taking control and actually working with friends. And then another friend, Blair, from work, he was, he played bass when he was in high school, and he was interested in coming and, doing that as well. So same thing, I got him recording, and then it led to this thing where every once a week we would actually catch up in my garage and we would work on these songs, or maybe we'd try and do a cover or whatever, and been doing that since 2010. And now Chris and Blair they've moved away, so they don't come anymore, but we've picked up some other friends that I made through, actually, we call it kindergarten here, it's preschool. And these were, two of them were dads that were there that my wife knew. And, they heard that I was doing this weekly jam thing. And it's kind of unique. Not many musicians that aren't actual professional musicians get a chance to play with other people. So slowly they came in, and then we had a keyboard player and a guy that can play guitar and bass as well. And now we've just picked up another friend through that extended unit who is from Cuba, and he plays bongos. And so now there's 4 of us, and we've recorded a few albums now, and each one gets better. We learn how to play together, we learn how to write, we learn how to record, and each song we do gets better and better. So the song that I use to end my streams at the moment is called When I'm Dead or When I'm Gone, which started as a poem that I entered in a competition, and I turned into a song for this album. So we're getting close there, but the band is called Shades in a Dark Room, which came from a poem that I wrote about wearing sunglasses in a dark room, in the same way that hissing thoughts kind of sounded like something a bit more than just a hiss, a sound. Shades in a dark room, it can be more than just sunglasses. It's like you're in a, you're in a darkened room and there's shades there as well, and it points to something a bit darker sort of thing. So that's this other creative part of me, someone that isn't a good singer or a musician, but just being able to do these things is really cool. And I'm slowly sharing that with my gaming community as well, and I'm getting good feedback, which is awesome. Like it's actually helped inspire me to crack the whip and say to these guys, hey, we've sat on our backsides now. We can't use COVID as an excuse anymore. We need to. Before, when we're saying when I'm dead or when I'm gone, it's kind of like, I think we could all use it as our funeral songs, and let's actually record that before one of us is dead and gone. And we can't do it anymore.
Any last messages or updates about your content to your fans?
I feel pretty blessed, to be honest. Like, so currently I've got just over 2,000 subscribers, which it doesn't sound like a big number, but when you stop and think about 2,000 people, that's a big number. Now, I know 2,000 people aren't watching my videos or my streams, but that's a YouTube thing. It's you take your 10% of whatever your subs are, and that's actually your base. I think I've got at the moment a really strong support base, and it's a humbling thing. Part of that is they're supportive not just on the game that they discovered me in. Like, often for content creators, they'll create extra channels because they can't pivot over to do something else when something new comes or when they get bored. I'm not doing that. It's all in here. I'm streaming and creating whatever I feel like within the same channel, and I'm getting good support with it. Like when I started doing Far Cry and Modern Warfare, streaming that, I was just really surprised that a few people would actually come along and really, really love it, and that's enough for me. Like just having I couldn't imagine having 1 million followers and just not being able to engage with the chat at all. Like that actually concerns me a little bit. Like, how do you get back to that sustainable consistency as I grow, to make sure that we don't lose sight of that, and that I love that my fans give me the freedom to do what I want, basically, and that they'll watch it regardless. That's a really cool thing. In terms of content, I've always got content ideas. It's just getting time to it. The where you've got ideas, those things take a bit longer. So today I put out this video on, we mentioned Lieutenant Varquez from Modern Warfare. He was only in the first one. He was a small part in it, but actually he was the leader for a number of scenes, and I turned that into content. It's a COD Mobile origin story. It's a backstory, but hey, you've got the skin in COD Mobile. I'm willing to say that most people who play COD Mobile don't know a damn thing about any of the legacy, that the Call of Duty backstories and stuff. Like they especially if you get into a country where maybe they don't have, it's lower economic and they don't have consoles or PCs, but they've got access to a phone, maybe a low end, whatever. COD Mobile is an amazing game. Like, there's so much going on in it. There's too much going on in it, to be honest, but there's so much, that's all you need, but you don't necessarily know those backstories. So here's it. I'm trying to, as I play these PC games, this is the tie back into the main thing I'm doing. It's like, oh, here's General Shepard. People don't know about him and how traumatic that was. That's probably one of the most traumatic games I've played. I didn't cry, but I was gobsmacked by the power of the story. Like Call of Duty back then, they were doing some amazing stories. Modern Warfare 1 and 2 is the highlight, and I want to share that with other people. So here's my engagement when I played this campaign, and I'm tying it into that. So there's a bit more of that, but it just takes time. So that story, that game I played last year, it's taken me this long to actually get around, because that stuff just takes a bit more brain power. I have to film extra bits, and versus, hey, I just played this amazing game and I popped off and I top fragged and this thing happened, and all I have to do is bring in the footage and clip, 10 minutes, easy. I can do that all day long, not a problem. So I want to do more of the other stuff, but it's that back to that time thing. I do listen to the people that engage with me if they want to. We've been doing some 1v1s on a Friday night because people wanted to bully me. So we I don't like 1v1s. I don't like them at all, but I've been doing them and I've been having fun, and it's kind of cool. So I do take. I think I'm like Jokester in that regard. He does listen to his comments, his fans. He does actually pay some attention there, and yeah, it's smart from a growth side of thing. But yeah, like if they're already supporting me, what else would you like to see me do? And let's do that.
Well, that comes to the end of our interview. So Hissing Thoughts, it's been a real pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions. Thank you so much.
Cheers, bud. Thank you. The magic is in the editing.